So tonight we are starting a new Bible study series. This lesson tonight will be an introduction overview, and then each week following will be a different specific topic. So, you might have seen in the news a few weeks ago that it was the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, the concentration camp. So, as we keep going throughout this year, 2025, we will reach more 80th anniversary milestones of 1945. So, in May, we will reach VE Day, the anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. And then later on, we will get to the anniversary of VJ Day, Victory over Japan. And interestingly, when I was getting the exact dates, and I had to Google, when is VJ Day again? It's actually 2 days. August 15th was when Japan announced its surrender, and September the 2nd was when the surrender was signed. So this is the 80th anniversary year of 1945. A lot of important things happened that year. The events of World War II itself are important to the world that still have impacts on us today in general, the world over and in our country, because they affected so many families. Almost any family will have, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt or an uncle who served or was affected or was on rations or bought war bonds or just prayed for the world and for the men and women serving overseas. So World War II had a big effect on everyone, and this series partly recognizes that. It definitely had a big effect on my family. Both of my grandfathers served overseas during the war. My maternal grandfather, he served in the Pacific. He was in an engineer boat and shore regiment that was attached to different divisions and different companies over many, many island landings in the Pacific. And my paternal grandfather, you can see his reflection there, he served in Europe. He was in heavy artillery, the 63rd Infantry Division. He helped break through the Siegfried Line into Germany. And not only was he serving overseas in the war, but also his 4 brothers were serving overseas at the same time. Now, I can't imagine how much stress that would have put on my great-grandma Lampkin to have all of her 5 sons overseas in the war. It could have been a Saving Private Ryan situation, but they all made it back safely and fine. And all of the men and women who served in those kind of capacities, I think, had exceptional character, amazing character, inspiring character. And I think, frankly, our country today is lacking some of that good character that this generation had, that kind of strong character and all of the different character traits that go in it. I think our country today is lacking some of that good, strong character. So this Bible study series, I think, is pertinent and timely all around. We'll be talking about building strong character over the next few weeks. And like I said, each week we will take a different aspect, a different character trait that we should endeavor to build up within ourselves. So every week we will be looking at Bible verses that speak to these character traits, to inspire us and to guide us, that we can go back to and to remind us. We'll be using one man's life and experiences as a great real-life example of all of these character traits and of strong character. He is Desmond Doss. And if anyone has seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge, which we'll get to in a minute, it was based on his life and his experiences. So let me give you a little overview on who Desmond Doss was. He lived in 1919, then passed away in 2006. grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. His family was they were a devout Seventh-day Adventist family. So they went to church all the time. Their faith was central to their character, their behavior, everything. You might remember years ago, I guess it was maybe 2019, when we talked about all the different denominations and religions. I think we might have done 1 week on Seventh-day Adventist. I'm sure you remember all the great things I shared 6 years ago in that Bible study. The Seventh-day Adventists are very serious about their Christian faith. Some of their theology is a little more extreme than ours might be in terms of like the end of the world end times. But they take their faith very seriously, even in terms of their health and their diet, which is why their hospitals are so good, like Advent Hospital in Hendersonville, which soon will be having a branch here in Leverville. So anyway, his family was Seventh-day Adventist, and he was very committed to his faith. He worked for a shipyard in Virginia, so he was offered deferment instead of being drafted, since he was making ships for the war effort. But he chose to enlist in military service, and he served as a combat army medic. Because of his Christian beliefs against killing, and we're going to watch a video where he says it's in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, then he refused to carry a weapon because he didn't even want to have the possibility that he could take a life or harm someone. He was assigned to B Company, 307th Infantry Regiment, 77th Infantry Division. They fought in places like Guam, the Philippines, Okinawa, elsewhere. So the Pacific Theater of War is where his division was assigned. So much like my maternal grandfather, some of the places Desmond Doss was at, my grandfather was also at in the invasion of the Philippines. During his military service, he was awarded the Bronze Star twice for valor while in Guam. During the Battle of Okinawa, which was a very intense and you might say horrific battle, he was wounded 4 times and so got the Purple Heart for being wounded in battle. Then, after the war, he was awarded the Medal of Honor for saving the lives of about 75 of his fellow soldiers in the Battle of Okinawa. It was hard to get an exact count, somewhere between 50 and 100 lives he personally saved. And when we watch some of his story portrayed, we'll see how he saved one by one. He saved lives. Despite the many serious injuries that he had and the long recovery he had to go through after the war, he still raised a family on a farm in Georgia and lived to be about 87 years old. So that's going to be our example that we'll go back to every week. Let's watch a 5-minute introduction to Desmond Doss's life and his experiences. So let's see. If I need to turn it up or turn it down, let me know.
My dad bought this 10 Commandments in large tract illustrated on a nice frame. And I had looked at that picture of 6 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. That's the picture had Cain had killed his brother Abel. Now, what how in the world could a brother do such a thing? Now, I picture Christ as saving life. I want to be like Christ, saving life instead of taking life. And that's the reason I take up the magazine.
Desmond Doss was drafted into the Army in April 1942. He wanted to serve his country, but electing not to bear arms, the Virginia native instead joined the Army Medical Corps. Assigned to the U.S. invasion of Okinawa, where deeply entrenched Japanese forces hammered American troops from caves and tunnels, Doss and his battalion were ordered to assault a jagged 400-foot escarpment overrun with Japanese defenders.
Japanese had been there for years. They had that method, honeycomb, and camouflage to look like natural terrain. And that's what we had to face. So I remember 8 or 9 of those Japanese positions we destroyed before we contacted A Company. And when the day was done, I didn't have a single man killed. The next day, we thought the big job was done, but instead, everything we tried this day went wrong. We threw hell, all types of hot explosions, demolition on the Japanese position. We decided it was only one thing left to do. We had 35 gallons of hard tank gasoline and 5 gallon water cans. 2 men cut all the can and lit up. 2 of them lived through it overnight. The ammunition dump must have gone off. That whole mountain just seemed to couldn't even take anything of it. It was stacked. But to our surprise, out came these Japanese from both sides for us.
Showering Doss's battalion with artillery, mortar, and machine gun fire, the Japanese drove the majority of the group back down the face of the escarpment. But dozens of casualties were still left behind.
I had these men up there and I shouldn't leave them. They were my buddies. Some of my men were families, and they trusted me. I didn't feel like I should value my life above my buddies. And so I decided to stay with them and take care of as many of them as I could. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Doss remained to tend the wounded, dragging them to the cliff's edge and attempting to lower them down the escarpment.
But I didn't have enough rope to do the job like it should be done. Then the Lord brought to my mind that knot I learned in West Virginia I never seen or heard of before.
Relying on his childhood experience rescuing flood victims, Doss fashioned a special sling that enabled him to lower the men one by one to safety.
So I just kept praying, Lord, please help me get one more, until there was none left. Not the last one down.
By nightfall, he had managed to rescue 75 fallen comrades.
It was 15 of us got to live that day. When my time came, I went up. But the man, he came out and he stepped over the line and called by my hand and shook my hand like an old time friend, somebody been knowing all his life. He didn't even give me a chance to get nervous. When you have explosives and the bullet's so close you could practically feel it and not get wounded up there when I should have been killed a number of times. I know who I owe my life to as well as my men. That's why I like to tell this story to the glory of God, because I know from the human standpoint I should not be here. You can't always win. When your buddies come to you and say they owe their life to me, what better reward can you get from that?
So, pretty incredible story that we will get to learn more of. In terms of Doss's character, he's too humble to talk about it himself, so let's see what some of his fellow soldiers and compatriots had to say about him. This is a 3-minute video, and it's actually kind of a preview for a 2004 documentary movie that was made about Desmond Doss, but it gives a good overview with some brief interviews of people who served with him.
Okinawa, 1945. You wouldn't believe the battle. The lives of 15,000 American GIs were lost. A lone medic, unarmed and unprotected, single-handedly saved the lives of 75 of his fellow soldiers on a bloody battlefield so fierce his chances of survival were almost impossible. He never fired a single shot. The conscientious objector, the true story of Private First Class Desmond T. Doss, as told by the men who once scorned him and who now owe their very lives to him. All he wanted was to wear the Army uniform and serve his country. He just didn't want to kill. For his incredible acts of heroism and service to his country, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Not all heroes carry guns. Some carry only their faith.
Any man is willing to go into war without a weapon he's going to have faith.
One of the most determined soldiers of all time.
You can go back over Medal of Honor winners, and it's because of one absolute instant of decision. And Dawson was a constant doing of something that was so outstanding, not only once, but time and time and time and time, and every time again.
He did the right thing about in carrying out his obligations. Not only his obligations to God, but his obligations to his fellow human beings, and particularly to his fellow Americans.
Conscientious Objector. It's a film for all Americans to see.
I have not seen that movie, but it does sound good. I assume that that one can be found in places around. So if you want to learn more about Desmond Doss, you can watch that documentary, Conscientious Objector, came out in 2004, and when I was researching some more into his life and his accomplishments, he was the first of only, I think, 3 people ever to receive the Medal of Honor who were conscientious objectors. So he was the very first one. And since the Medal of Honor is given for heroism in war, obviously being a conscientious objector is rare for a soldier, and he was the first one. So as we go through this series, I hope that it'll both inspire us and challenge us. Like I said, every week we'll use clips from this movie, Hacksaw Ridge, came out in 2016, which kind of tells the story of Doss signing up and going through training, getting a lot of bullying, during basic training, because, you know, all the other guys with him, when they found out you're not gonna carry a weapon and you're supposed to be, you know, in our company, in our platoon, they didn't take very kindly to that. So he faced a lot of bullying and insults from his fellow soldiers at the beginning. But then the movie shows, especially the Battle of Okinawa, and how he was a true hero during those days. So I do want to give a heads up that every week when we watch a few clips from this movie, there are clips, many of them, from war scenes, battle scenes. A lot of people die or blow up or get killed. So I do think it's a rated R movie. I just wanted to give that kind of heads up that you do see some pretty, I assume, realistic war scenes portrayed. So if you come on future weeks and if it's a little too much and you need to step out for the 3 minutes that the video clip will last, that's okay. I'm not going to show any of those tonight, however. The clips that I'll use and some of the discussion questions come from an organization called the Desmond Doss Foundation, which helps to tell his inspiring story and share it around so that others can be inspired as well. So they're the ones who kind of grab these short clips from the movie Hacksaw Ridge and organize them in these character traits. So that's what I'll be using. So here's a little overview of that series. This is only about 2 minutes, and it is a little cheesy, but it's good. So cheesy but good.
Welcome to the Doss Experience. You are about to participate in a dynamic series of interactive educational episodes. In short, we call them edusodes. This new word is as unique as the process you are about to experience. Each edusode will demonstrate a positive character trait from the life of Medal of Honor recipient Desmond Doss. Each edusode has 3 goals. 1, to define and demonstrate the character trait. 2, to develop that character trait in yourself. 3, to participate in a support system enhancing your personal and moral compass. You'll be immersed in visually gripping and graphic aspects of Doss's experiences. These lead to interactive responses centering on specific points of decision. In short, a POD. You will develop personalized follow-up plans to practice and adopt each positive character trait in your own life. Change requires 3 things: information, decision, and most important, follow through. In order to be successful, there will be opportunities to work with a battle buddy to assist your personal progress. You can choose from 4 levels of interaction. It's one thing to know about Doss. It's quite another thing to live like Doss. Let's get started.
So cheesy but good, like I said. And also, like I said, we'll be looking at Bible verses each week that speak to each different character trait, and it will help us kind of have that plan of attack for ourselves for the week as we work on things like developing more integrity or selflessness or humility. The Bible verses that we will read tonight are Desmond Doss's favorite Bible verses that kept him going and that guided him through his life and through these challenges. And I already know that they are the favorite Bible verses of a few of you because you have told me. So Desmond Doss's favorite Bible verses were Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And I put a typo because I was using one translation that said, he will make your paths straight, but then I changed it to a different translation, he will direct your paths, but I left the make in. So that's not the Bible's mistake, that's my mistake. Well, there, as you know, different English translations of the original Hebrew will come up with different versions. The King James would be, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean on his, and all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. But the New International Version translates it a little differently. So, given what you have learned so far about Desmond Doss and his life and his experiences, how do you think those verses inspired and guided him during his military service? What do you think about those verses he might have held on to during his military service?
Just the first word you start with.
Which was?
Trust.
Trust. Maybe when bullets are flying at you, explosions are happening, holding on. What do you think that did for him? Like that trust, what does it do for us? What kind of effect does it have?
In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. That one comes to my mind.
That one jumps out at you? Mm-hmm. And as we watch clips each week, we will see his behavior doing that. Like his behavior to only help people and not hurt people. When he gets a hard time for that, he says, well, that's my Christian faith. I refuse to hurt anyone. So in all of his ways, he was trying to acknowledge God and God's command.
And the chance of him getting through it was almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, the Pacific was like two different wars.
Mm-hmm.
After Pearl Harbor was hit, we lost everything. Island after island after island fell to the Japanese. After Midway, our forces finally got straight. Our commander was taken out and taken to South Australia for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, without proper command, they were still ordered to go back in and retake those islands. Now, the Japanese had been told that the Americans were terrible people, we were animals, we were cannibals, and they could not retreat. They had to fight to the death, and even the airplanes, the wheels were fixed so when the airplanes took off, the wheels would fall off them, so that they could not come back.
The fighting in the Pacific was very brutal. It was brutal and vicious. Yeah. And I don't want to belittle the fighting in the European theater, but like Ray said, island hopping into jungles and mountain cliffs where the Japanese had tunnels and caves and had been entrenched for years and had built up armaments. It was very difficult and very vicious and just horrific. Yeah. And with little chance of survival or getting out of it unscathed. Other ways, how do you think these verses guided Desmond Doss's path? It's an interesting thing to think about the trust in the Lord. What does that mean? Like you kind of trust that God, the Creator, is there and is around you, but he could not trust that he would survive the war because so many of his fellow soldiers did not. And so when we say, trust the Lord with all your heart, it doesn't mean trust that you will get through the day unscathed or unwounded. He was wounded severely, and many of his fellow soldiers died. So it's an interesting challenge to think about, what are you trusting in? And what does that trust do for you?
he will go with you and hold your hand.
That God will be with you right there. Wherever you are, God will be with you. Yeah. That's very true. There is no faraway place we can go to that is out of the reach of God's presence. Like the psalm, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I go from your presence? If I rise on the wings of the dawn, settle on the far side of the sea, even there, your hand will find me. Your right hand will hold me fast. I don't remember which psalm that is specifically, but maybe 92 or something. There's nowhere we can go that God's presence would not be with us. And like when we were praying earlier, if there are places where bombs are falling, where people are suffering, I might argue that God's presence is there the most, where there is sadness and death and loss, because God's presence is needed the most.
In that movie, he said that when he would get those soldiers and start to lower them, that he would say, God, help me get one more.
Yeah.
So he acknowledged God every time he'd say, help me one more.
Yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
That's what it said.
And that's like, I'm glad you pointed out, in all your ways. So, he feels God directing his path to get this one person lowered down, and then go out and get the next person lowered down, and the next, and just tell him to get one more. And that should be our prayer in a sense. God, help me to serve just one more person today. How can I bless or serve or support one more person today? Help me help one more person today. And that should be our prayer as well. It's interesting to think about his story. We'll see scenes either next week or the week after, like I said, where the other soldiers bullied him and made fun of him at first for being a conscientious objector, because his fellow soldiers, many of them were Christians too. So it's a good reminder, this is a true statement. You might not have realized this before, but not every Christian agrees on everything. Big surprise, I know you're surprised. That you assumed every person who claims to be a Christian agrees on everything about every issue. But it's not the case. It's not the case. So Desmond Doss, a very strong Christian, he believed that he should not harm, certainly not kill, another human being. Now, other Christians, like my grandfathers, they were ready to do whatever they were ordered to do, whether it was with a rifle or with 88 millimeter heavy artillery. So I'm certainly not judging other soldiers, but do you think the fact that Desmond Doss would believe that, say that, and do that, does that make him weird? Or does that make him right? Or both? What do you think?
That was his path.
It was his path. And he felt directed by God to walk that path. Yeah.
And that would have been extremely hard to do that when you see your fellow soldiers fall and people that you knew die their lives over.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're all human. And the human aspect, most of us would thought, hey, give me that weapon, we'll take up for it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a hard thing in the world just to say, I'm not going to fight.
Yeah. It would be hard. And I wonder if he saw that as a temptation to pick up a weapon and try to kill someone. But he, I think, resisted it for most of the war. But what do you think? Does it make him weird? I mean, peculiar or not the norm, you would say, for a lot of Christians. Some Christians are very strongly, actively against the death penalty for those convicted and sentenced to the death penalty because of the sixth commandment that Desmond Doss said he saw all the time growing up. Even if that person might be guilty or might not be, or was convicted, whether the conviction was real or not, many Christians are very actively against the death penalty because they think that it's wrong, whereas other Christians are very much in favor of the death penalty. So we can say that him being a conscientious objector might not be the majority, but as we will see, his rock solid faith was and is a true inspiration, and maybe more of us should be inspired and challenged by it. As we close tonight, I want to go back to kind of the preview of the different character traits that we will be looking at as the weeks go by. And like I said, we'll do one every Wednesday. I haven't looked at the calendar, but whatever day Ash Wednesday is on before Easter, that might separate one. But for the most part, we'll do one each week. And so as you look at this list, and again, I hope that we're all inspired and convicted and challenged in some way. Hopefully it makes us rethink some things or assumptions that we had. Is there one or two that stands out to you that you think, wow, people today really need to work on that one? That one is really lacking today. Which one was that?
Number 4.
Number 4, yes, humility. I think humility is very lacking today. And which one?
Number 3, yeah.
And number 3, integrity. Yeah. Number 5, selflessness. Yeah, big time. Big time. I think social media encourages people to be the opposite of humble, because it encourages everyone to present a perfected image of themselves and boast about all their accomplishments, which I had done. I mean, you know, when I would graduate from something or have a baby, I'd be like, look, I had the best baby ever, you know. So we're kind of trained almost to boast and brag and show off and not be humble. How have you seen, talk to me about the vibe of the lack of integrity or lack of selflessness that you can feel. Like what kind of behaviors would?
Road rage.
Road rage. Oh yeah, how so?
Well, that's not looking after other people.
Yeah.
That's selfish.
Yeah, because you're saying, I want to be up there, you're cutting me off, that should be my position, I should be in the front, I should be in front of you, you should be behind me, you jerk, and now you cut me off, and it was my turn, and I'm trying to get somewhere, and it's all about me, and you know, forget that guy, how dare he get in front of me. Yeah.
And number 5, the selflessness. It's almost impossible now to take high school kids and say, look, are you going to set your life aside for 3 or 4 years to serve your country? No, there's nothing in it for you. No, you're not going to profit in any way. It's just you need to serve your country for these years. That's a little bit tough.
Yeah, it's a hard sell to convince people to be selfless these days. When I
don't know
get
if that's new.
true. When I get cut off in traffic, I think of something that one of our great church members told me one time, and I won't say their name because they are very humble and they wouldn't want the attention. But they said, I try to be thankful that maybe because that person is slowing me down, I will avoid some terrible accident. And maybe that's God's way of protecting me. And so maybe I should be a little more okay if someone cuts me off or slows me down. I remember, you got me started on road rage, which is my, those are the times in my life I've been the most angry, like just the most enraged. And I confess that. I'm trying to get better, but as a younger man, it would just be terrible, terrible. And I was in Slovakia on a mission trip, and we were in a van driving along a highway. It was 2-lane highway, and we were going, whatever miles per hour, kilometers or something. They're made up metric system. So we were going pretty fast, and this car passes us while there is a truck coming like right in front of us. Like obviously there's this truck coming, and this car is passing us. So I start freaking out, but the driver, our Slovak driver, he kind of pulls over halfway on the shoulder. The truck kind of pulls over halfway on the shoulder, and I think, oh my gosh, thank goodness we didn't die just right then. I can't believe that just happened. And the driver said, oh no, it's natural. We just assumed that my brother really needed to get somewhere quickly, and so we should move over and let him pass so that he can get to his destination quicker. And I was like, oh man, that's ridiculous. That guy's a jerk, and you shouldn't let him, my natural American road rage, because I was still younger at the time. But I can't forget that. That's an amazing mindset to have. That it's not about you trying to get to your destination, but if your brother or sister is in a hurry, then hey, let them get there. And maybe not everything should be for you. Other ones that you're looking forward to investigating some more, thinking about some more? I think they will be challenging. Some will be challenging. Hopefully we can kind of turn them around, see them from different angles as well. Well, be thinking about what makes for good, strong character. If there are other character traits you might include, or if there's some that you feel you might need to really work on. I can see there are a couple that I might naturally be a little stronger in, and some I'm naturally a little weaker in. That's going to be the same for everyone. So be thinking about ones that you might need some extra encouragement and inspiration from, and be looking forward to those weeks in the weeks ahead. But for right now, we will pause it there, and we will pick up next week with courage. So we will definitely see some good examples from Desmond Doss's story to inspire and challenge us to have courage in our lives as well. So I'll see you next week. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.